Hi everyone, Canada here. So I was watching Railnatter a couple of weeks ago. Watch Railnatter, by the way, it is really good. And Gareth said something interesting.
I bet you cannot create the results that I can create in PowerPoint as quickly in Inkscape as I can in PowerPoint from a standing start.
So as someone who just put out a video using Inkscape to draw some rail maps, and who has used Inkscape quite a lot, who has been a fan of Inkscape for quite a while, I felt the need to test this assertion. Let's see if I can follow along with Gareth and achieve a comparable result in a similar time. I've recorded this in advance because talking and doing Inkscape at the same time is a skill I don't have, so let's roll the clip and I can talk over it.
Let's get PowerPoint up. Let's just get a blank.
So the first thing Gareth does is open PowerPoint, which I'll do when he says start.
PowerPoint. There we go. Blank PowerPoint.
So I get Inkscape back instead. I'll put that full screen just so we've got enough space to work with.
No, all very nice and straightforward. Nothing.
I don't need to go and look through my file list because I've got Inkscape configured to not show me a file list when I start it.
So you can see the hostility, the problems that you have to deal with. The first thing I'm going to do is say Control-A, delete.
I have a blank document, so I don't need to delete everything to start with.
Go into design, slide size, custom slide size.
So you can see at the bottom I've got my key visualizer. I press Command-Shift-D to get up into the document properties, and I can select screen sizes directly from the menu. I don't need to manually set that in centimeters or anything.
Screen size. So if I then save this, so if I then go to F12,
then you can see if I Command-Shift-D to export a file, then it will set that at the right resolution immediately rather than needing to customize anything.
So let's see.
I also have my snapping options set. There's a whole bunch of ones that I can manually configure rather than just what PowerPoint gives me, which is useful.
I don't know if it is a colour used anywhere else particularly. It just happens to be a really nice vivid orange that also happens to have a very nice hexadecimal colour. So here we go. Here's PowerPoint. The first map we're going to do. Let's go with something super simple, shall we? I'm kind of making it up. We're going to go for. There we are. So I've just drawn a line.
So I can also draw a line, B to get the Bezier tool, and then 2 points gives me a happy line. And the snapping options I got set mean similarly to PowerPoint that it snaps on the little screen. I could also use inline and distribute to that, but the snapping options are quite nice in that.
If I'm doing this too quickly, then shout at me.
So, unlike Gareth, I'm going to make this circle off the side of the page, and because I know what's coming, I'm going to group it, then clone it, and then duplicate that clone and move the clone to each end of the line, snapping into place.
Got this circle, got this line, great. I'm going to copy, I'm holding down the Control key to copy the circle. There we are, there's another one.
So I can't control and copy to make a copy, I need to use Command D to make a duplicate, and then move the duplicate.
Manchester. I could keep it simple. Let's go with Leeds, New York, Newcastle. Okay, so Liverpool, Manchester, Leeds. You're getting what I'm going to
draw. Also, Gareth looks at how many dots he wants.
No, Liverpool, Manchester, Bradford, Leeds, York, Darlington, Newcastle. Is that what we're going to do? Let's do. Should we do that, or should we just do it to York? New line to York, because it is just the new line. Okay, let's go Liverpool, Manchester, Bradford, Leeds, York. Okay, fine, and then get rid of 2. So we can just get rid of these 2. Fine, there we go. And I'm going to then do this, which is I'm going to go a line, and I'm going to say with these.
So Command-Shift-A brings up align and distribute. I'm going to align relative to last selected, which is what I usually do, and then align and distribute vertically exactly the same way.
That's useful. How neat and tidy is that? Lovely. Let's select all these.
So now I don't need to select all to modify these. I can go and edit the object that I've cloned, and it will automatically edit all of them, so I can set the stroke thickness.
We've got a white background at the moment. Let's keep a white background for now. Nice
and
simple.
Set the line colour to match.
We now want all of these lines to be. Let's pick a colour, shall we? Let's go.
Play around with the thicknesses here. Oh, and I want the stroke to be on top, because otherwise it doesn't match. Yeah, that's better.
Let's get a. Let's go in.
So make the stroke match again.
Let's do what I often do, which is get hold of.
And make the line colour match the fill colour.
Actually, let's get this up so you can see what I'm doing, everyone. Let's go in here, network rail.
So let's go and grab this file that Gareth's getting, which I've
Wayfinding
got in advance because live Googling isn't a skill I want to test here.
Bang. There.
And
there we go. So we can get rid of that now. We'll come back to that
slight
window
cheat here
later,
because
I'm
I
sure.
know what Gareth's about to do, so I can jump ahead and pull that page in.
These colours here, these are the official. These are basically all the modern British.
Turns out
colours.
following a video at the same time as
Let's just take a quick
doing exactly what it's
screenshot
doing
of
is
that, 'cause
tricky,
that's quite
so
useful.
I
There we
thought
go.
that I was doing this in time with
Visual
Gareth, but
angle.
actually I was
Let's
jumping
drop
ahead
that
of him
in here.
slightly.
Why are we doing that? Well, because it might
But I can have that
be more useful
imported,
in a
that
minute.
PDF
So
imported
let's go
directly as a
for
separate
nice
page in
clean
Inkscape now.
red to start with.
So if I want to
Just
pull any
drop the
elements in,
colour-
I can.
colour- So that was this colour swatch. I don't know if you spotted that. So I'm going to shape outline.
I could also bring in
eyedropper.
vector
I'm
elements from
gonna
that
pick
if I wanted
red
to,
up. Very
although I'm
nice.
not going to do
Now,
that today.
there are different ways.
But
I
yeah,
can
I've managed to
make
get the
these.
colour from
Look,
that. I could do the same for the
fill
line.
these to make them nice and thick, except that I've missed one.
I can fill that circle with the same, and all the circles are just to
quite
match.
popular is to make them look like this. To make them look like that. Nice and simple.
I can also fill it with white in the same way, and it gives a similar result.
Very
So.
nice. So there is a nice simple set of a nice simple line. That was super quick, very pleasant. Now the next thing, what do we want to do? The first thing is put in the text box. Now text box in PowerPoint. Start off firstly. Let's just put some text. In fact,
So text box in Inkscape are quite different to ones in PowerPoint. You don't have the same margins, so we don't need to customize that. It does default to my previous stroke options, which is annoying. I could have changed that manually, but that's fine. You can see I've made an error here. I'm whacking that into the cloned object, which is not what I wanted to do. I wanted to have one text box sitting by itself, so I have to undo all that and start again.
Let's get rid of the margins altogether, because often
since I haven't had to fiddle around with text box margins, that has not lost me very much time relative to Gareth here.
We're going to go with a do not wrap.
I can make that text bit bigger.
And we're going to then, that's fine, that's that done. It's currently this way justified, but actually we probably want it to be this way justified. Let's hold shift so we get a nice clean angle. And let's also change the text size up to...
So, unlike in PowerPoint, in Inkscape I hold Control to get a clean angle, but otherwise it's exactly the same. And rather than having a constantly visible rotation handle, I click twice to go from resize handles to rotation handles. Now I change the font. I don't have, unlike Gareth, I don't have Braille alphabet available, so I need to use a cheap Playwright knockoff version.
Control, by the way, to copy, so it's the quick, nice.
Something I don't get in Inkscape is that little right margin that PowerPoint gives us, so I have to position this manually, which is, yeah, that's potentially a nice thing to have in PowerPoint. There are probably other ways of doing this. I could create some guides that I could line up with, but here I'm doing this by eye because Gareth's talking about doing things nicely by eye. So
certainly with text alignment. However, also if you want to make, if you're a
if I duplicate both of those things, and I can then line the circle up with the circle at the top, and so the text is the same aligned among all of them. Then if I duplicate those and roughly align them, I can then use align and distribute to get those all in place. You can see I'm clicking these by hand. I realised after the fact that that's not the quickest way of doing that. I could click one and then select all similar. I'll demo that later in a different section, but yeah, that could have been a bit more streamlined. I don't use Inkscape every day, so I'm not quite as fluent with it as someone who might use it for their job, but yeah, I'm closer to the average Inkscape user than a pro user potentially.
Each one, so Bradford. Bradford.
So now we get to insert some text.
You know what? And then, okay, I'm going to change my mind. Oh, it's fine. It's not the end of the world, because then I can just do this.
So now we need to add another point.
Actually, what I do need to do is do this.
It works very similar here to how it does for Gareth. Again, I could use select similar or select same object type here to get all these circles and distribute them properly, and then same for the text.
There we are, problem solved. So if I want Warrington in here, Warrington. There we go, this is very nice. Lovely. Let's just change Liverpool up as well. So Liverpool, Warrington.
And you can see I'm not happy with the way that's aligned because I made an error. Turns out mystery meat navigation isn't great. I've clicked the wrong button there. I thought I was aligning by baselines, but actually I was aligning by distances between objects, which isn't what I wanted. I'm now going to do bottoms or right-hand sides instead, which is close enough to aligning the baselines. Or, I guess, text anchor points rather than baselines.
Move this around so that it then is centralised with the text. I reckon we can do better than that, you know. I do reckon we could do better than that. How could we do better than that?
Yeah, it's looking pretty similar as
Incorrect.
is.
The one true typeface is papyrus. You're not. I don't even know if I have papyrus. Oh, I do have papyrus.
Can we get everything to be papyrus?
There's
So
papyrus.
here,
Fine.
select all the text.
Let's see. Can't see mouse.
T to open the
Oh,
text
mouse
tool,
cursor.
go to
Thank you.
papyrus.
Capture
That
cursor.
works.
Cursor is on. There we are. That should help. Sorry, everyone. That was daft.
And go back to
Some people like the
my
the
knockoff Rail
multiple
alphabet.
numbers of fonts. I prefer just going for old Rail Native fonts.
Turns out that
multiples
my
of 10.
keyboard
I don't know why, I just find it
visualizer doesn't actually tell you
I
when
could do
you're
the
using a
line
shift or control
text,
and clicking, so I'm going to have to try and remember to do that.
that.
So it was shift click to select all of those
doing this
text
because I
elements.
find that actually with things like text, don't be afraid to trust your eye on what looks right, because sometimes what is right.
So yeah, I'm looking at this and thinking it doesn't look quite like what Gareth's done, so I'm going to shift these down slightly. So I can use down, left, just to do some slight precise precision movement here.
It just depends what bothers you most, though. Like your personal preference might, you might have different preferences.
If I go back, I'd probably try and shuffle the entire thing a bit right here at this point, because it's a little bit close to the left edge and not very close to the right edge.
Liverpool, Warrington, Manchester, Bradford, Leeds, York. Okay,
that's easily done.
Great, that's interesting. Could we do more? Yeah, possibly. So, for example, we could fill all of these in.
Yep, we can fill all of those in. That's the thing we can do.
Let's go for
using F7 to use the colour picker rather than trying to manually pick the colour again.
And try and see if I can find where I've recently located an SVG of. Where did I place?
So I'm going to bring this in this SVG. Like before, I could bring in the PDF that I borrow this SVG from and do that, but since I have the SVG already,
so if, for example,
I can do
you
that.
get hold of the new RS2 logo in SVG format, firstly.
So yeah, hold Control and drag to keep this orientation locked.
To just have this. Let's reduce
align
the size
that
of
on
this,
the symbol.
I'm holding Shift, by the way, to make sure that I'm, and also Control to make sure that I'm re-centralizing it whilst holding the middle. So if I do this,
similar in Inkscape, Control and Shift to resize relative to the center.
Central, which is useful for example, if I want to have
so now I have beaten Gareth to the punch here.
And resize this.
I don't need to do the whole malarkey of copying and pasting this to each of the symbols because I'm using a clone, so that's all done for me. Oh. Rail Symbol 2 brand guidelines, where did you come from? No, go away. Get out of here.
Do that, and then I'll do that. And I'll do that as well. Let's do, and there we go. Actually, I'm not sure this one is correctly lined up. Let's just get rid of that.
So now we're just chilling out, waiting for the manual copy and paste process to catch up.
And then another one, and then another one. Marvelous. This is so. That's I think. Good. There we are. Let's now bring this over here. Bring this round, rotate, and put this to slightly larger.
So I can do the same thing. Bring some text down, rotate it.
Let's get rid of our.
You have to be careful. Double-clicking text opens the text editor. You need to click twice, but not double-click to get the rotation handles. That can be a little bit annoying, but it's not the end of the world.
A new high-speed line between. Actually,
again, this is where typing and keeping track of what Gareth is saying is
justify that against the edge
bringing me a cropper.
Circle, because it's nice to do that.
Can I right align that?
Go. Okay, I'm doing it by eye because the smart guides just want to ignore me. Fine.
I wasn't sure what Gareth was aligning against here, so I've aligned it against Bradford. He might have been doing it against the right edge of York instead, in which case that's slightly different to what I've done here, but never mind.
Penines. Yeah. And what can look quite nice is new high speed line there. And there we have
so
it.
because I don't have the proper Rail alphabet 2, I'm having to mess around with fonts here.
So there's a map.
The fake Rail alphabet 1 I have has a light and a dark variant, but I think that's more for having it against different backgrounds, so it doesn't particularly look very different or necessarily very nice. I have another fake Rail alphabet. It calls itself New Rail Alphabet that looks slightly nicer here.
Things not to do are to ever squish things like images. Like, don't do that. Never do that. The good thing what you can then do with this, by the way, if you know in PowerPoint is F12 is save as, and then save it as. You can save it as a PDF.
So yeah, if I want to export a PDF here, I can. File, save a copy. I don't do that because I don't want to show my file system to you. Or you can use Command-Shift-E to bring up the export dialog and save as a PNG, which is what Gareth is now doing.
Map 1. Just this one.
Do you fill in the path to the where you want to save it at the bottom?
There's map number 1. People can have high
You
speed with
can
a high
adjust your resolution. You select the page you want to export because I've got multiple pages in this document. I'll go and delete the spare page now.
You could do though. For example,
export that and you're done.
You could let's change this up a bit and make this a bit of a different. Oh no, I didn't want to delete the big circle. Let's make a slightly different style to this, shall we? Let me have a think. What might look quite cool? Let's change the background for starters. So let's just do. Actually, that's particular.
I don't use the pages option very often, so I just accidentally moved the pages around, which is what I wanted. I just wanted to delete that page, and that's done.
We're going to do as let's do something.
So I want to change the background. So Command-Shift-D again to bring up the document properties.
This, and then
if I knew the color I wanted, this would be easier. But now I'm trying to dial in a color that looks roughly like what Gareth's done. That's too dark, and I've gone to black. That means it's reset the colours. And it's slightly annoying thing about this colour picker. I should have probably just switched to a different colour picker here, but never mind.
Because I think with a bright colour you can go with a thinner line here. So let's go with.
That sounds a little bit darker, but good enough for rock and roll.
What could we do with this? We could go with. Yeah, let's go with this. Let's go.
Now just changing the colour of everything. You can see here I'm using the select same type to get all of my text elements. That's what I mentioned earlier. I could have done earlier as well.
Let's get rid of the line. So let's go with no outline on these.
So yeah, let's get rid of those road symbol 2s. Make the road symbol 2 brand guidelines happy.
Vibe here, I think. So I reckon, let's go. Let's quick trick. You can go. Shape format.
So this is something PowerPoint does really nicely that Inkscape doesn't have, is the change shape option. But what I've done instead is I've made this group so I can add an element to the group and delete the old element, and that means then I've now replaced every symbol by the square shape instead of the circle, which is same result, slightly more planning up front needed, and slightly more work needed, but still it's
a little bit less.
Pretty convenient, and yeah.
I think this works better. But you can also do, for example, you could do something more like this, and then you can. If you then, when you do something at a funny angle, actually, it can make sense to. But if you've done it, so we drew that at a pretty arbitrary angle, didn't we? I think if I go to be honest, again, you can judge quite nicely by eye what is, and then if you hold. So I've just drawn that by eye, which looks pretty good as a right angle, actually.
Yeah, I'm just eyeing in a right angle here. If I wanted to, I could have taken the existing line, duplicated it, rotated it by 90 degrees to get me a perfect right angle. But since Gareth is eyeing it in, I decided to do the same thing.
Extend the thing whilst keeping it the same angle. So we could
shift to extend a line while keeping the same angle is something Inkscape doesn't do so nicely. So that is a point in PowerPoint's favour, slightly. There are other ways of achieving the same thing though, so.
And
you can use Control-Shift to resize, but it'll also resize the stroke width, which isn't usually what you want, then you have to remember what the stroke width was and reset it. Here. So here, Inkscape decided to crash on me. Inkscape doesn't often crash on me, so I've just paused the video just long enough to resume Inkscape and bring the document back up. Thankfully, Inkscape does have pretty good autosaves now, so when it does crash on you, you very rarely lose anything. And let's resume the video now. Inkscape's back up and I've got the document loaded again.
A bit more, a bit snazzier, as you can see.
So yeah, just trying to delete those points.
As an alternative, it's not bad. Lots of things would work better.
And I'm going to do similar things to what I did with the other symbol, which is make a
because they provide you a reliable
thing that I can clone and a thing that I can edit all of them at once. And now I will try and arrange the centres of these distributed so that they're nicely equidistant.
Other lines, other kind of. If you have that as a straight line, straight lines are quite flat, whereas actually, for things like Twitter, the ideal picture is
And
this
now
size.
I'll just diet
So you
in
wanna
to
create
try and get
thing
them a
that
bit
image
closer to
that
the
fills this
labels.
size. So there you go.
Bring them up
There's,
into the left.
There's station number 1. Sorry, map number 1. Map number 2. What are we going to do for map number 2?
It's going to be slightly slower than Gareth here because I want to look down the length of that line a little bit, just so that they will line up nicely.
What do we do for map number 2? I mean, we could do this again, but just a little bit more complicated, couldn't we? Yes, I agree that the little, actually this might work quite nicely if we change these back to, so let's edit shape, change these back to circles.
Yep, I can change these back to circles too.
Circles. Not that small though, like that.
Slightly smaller circles, yeah, that's achievable too.
That's quite a neat little map.
So I'm cutting out all the section where Gareth works in Google Maps, make myself a new document. So rather than doing this as multiple slides, I'll do this as multiple documents.
Now, the trouble with bringing in an image into here that we're going to draw over is that that image kind of gets in the way. So
Gareth's complaining about the fact that images get in the way. Inkscape has tools to deal with this called layers. You can put things on different layers, you can lock those layers or show and hide them separately. So you can keep control of different aspects, different types of thing you're putting in your documents, rather than needing to use SlideMaster, which is not exactly, I guess it's related to what this was intended for, so you're not completely outside what Microsoft wanted to do with SlideMasters, it's just
bring this over here,
slightly separated. Whereas Inkscape, this is, I think, pretty much what layers, at least one use case for layers that works really well. So
I've just dropped it in.
Gareth's dropping in some images he got from Google Maps. Sorry, from Google Earth. Inkscape's a little bit slow because these are 8K images. There we go, there's one. I can Command-Shift-R to resize the document to match that. Then I need to import the other two. But yeah, let's put this in a layer. Let's make a new layer and give that layer the name BG1. Make a new layer called BG2.
These three, they're all sat on top of each other. So
I'm going to import the second image into.
As well, if it's useful to do so. So this one is blank. This one is.
I'm gonna mess up here. I'm gonna. Looking ahead, I'm going to mess up the layer naming slightly, and I'm going to get confused over which layer is which. Because I don't know these maps as well as Gareth does. So there is going to need to be a pause in the moment while I confuse myself about this. But in the meantime, I can create a third layer, import this.
So for now, let's have the...
Shuffle things, we'll try and get things on the same page and fail because I can't see the page boundaries in the background. But just move everything into place. Once I've done that, I can lock all these layers in place and I can show and hide them. Well, I can show whichever layer I want to see at a given moment. There we go. So that one with the lines, I don't have access to Gareth's secret maps of possible transport networks, so I've had to screenshot that out of his video. So it ends up looking slightly different because I screenshotted the earlier version rather than the final one he's imported. It does make it slightly more visible, but yeah.
East-West Watershed episode was, yes, you're right, new N01_official. East-West Watershed was...
So once that's done, I then will soon need to make a new layer to put all of my actual design elements on, so let's do that now.
How do we want this?
What am I going to call that?
Well, probably.
Let's call that crayons. I'm going to draw some lighted crayons on this layer.
Let's go back to the slide masters and let's just briefly put all these on top of each other.
So here, Gareth is rescaling this to fix fix the size to match the slide size. I can do this the other way around. I can draw a rectangle with the aspect ratio that I want, and then I resize it to the part of the image I want to do. So just make that the same size as the image to start with, because that has the aspect ratio that we want. F1 to go back to the mouse tool, then I can control click there to bring that down, keeping the aspect ratio. I can still export it at the same resolution, and I can position that on the image to where I want to crop it to.
And we can go back to the blank layout to sort of see the full picture. So let's go back to our existing HS lines. Let's just quickly.
So Command Shift R resizes the
here.
document to the current selection,
And
which in this
what
case
colour do we
is
do? I don't know.
the
Let's,
rectangle I want to be my viewport.
Stick with the,
Then I can
stick
hide
with that
that.
colour scheme that we had previously, couldn't we? So we know that there's Liverpool. There is Warrington.
So we want to put some symbols in here.
Warrington. Warrington is going to be.
So
Warrington
make myself a circle, similar to before, group it, clone it.
Manchester, here-ish.
And group with Command G, clone with Alt D.
Bradford.
So I get Liverpool. And here's where I get a bit lost, because I don't understand the geography of the north as well as some people do, because I haven't spent that much time there. And I especially haven't spent that much time looking at unmarked aerial maps of the north. So you can see I'm messing up with where I'm putting these dots. That's not a failure of Inkscape, that's just a failure of my geography. So I need to pause Gareth's video here while I work out where on earth I am. And I work out that actually that dot I've got highlighted is in the wrong position. Is that like Ellesmere Port or somewhere? I don't even know. But anyway, it's not where Gareth put the station. So I need to get my bearings, work out which layer is which, because I mentioned the error I made with layer names. You can see I'm just panicking a bit here. Now I've worked out, okay, that's the proposed lines that Gareth made, and then this is the existing network down there. Except it's not, that's the base map, the existing one's at the top. Again, the lines are very thin, so it's hard to see them and work out which layer is which. Yeah, if I were working with these maps every day, I would not have made that mistake, so I think I'm justified in pausing here. So resuming Gareth's video, I can now
here, isn't it?
Carry on placing my stations.
So that's there.
And try and find the same positions on the map. Again, I'm getting a little bit lost, but
what will eventually be the
I don't want to do very much actual Inkscape editing while paused, because that would be cheating.
Just think where Meadowhall is.
Or cheating worse than I'm cheating already.
Here, isn't it, Meadowhall? Yeah. Okay, fine.
So yeah, just trying to work out where that dot is relative to Gareth's lines.
Meadowhall is there. Bradford, Leeds, York. Let's go. Let's go. Let's do this. So
ended up with one too many stations down there, so let's bring this one up here. No, it's further north than that. Keep going north. There we go.
Do it. We're going to draw. So we've got these dots going off here. What do I want to do with these dots? Yeah, I'm not sure. What are we going to do with these dots? First thing we're going to do with these dots is join them up, and we're not going to use the.
Yeah, I'm going to join them up too. Right? I'm going to use. Oh, hey, I missed a station there. Let's fix that while we're there.
Curve tool, which it requires. We're not going to perfectly draw.
So Inkscape's really good at Bezier curves. That's basically what it's designed for. Unlike PowerPoint, when you start drawing with the Bezier tool, it doesn't automatically add curves. You can tell it to do it while it's doing it. I've never quite got comfortable with that, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to start off by drawing straight lines between all of these.
It's going to change the color. You can see a very faint blue line.
Pick all of my intermediary points. And then once I've done that, I can then tell it to add roughly the sort of curves that PowerPoint would have added.
In a minute, you'll see what that ends up
so,
like.
Gareth's saying in a minute. I'm also saying in a minute. So in a minute, we'll see how that works.
It takes a bit of playing with to get this.
So we'll snap the points to the middle of our stations.
Blind point you created, so that's quite useful. So let's go with that's where our Leeds route's going to look like, and then it's going to from there. And you know what?
So here I'm just looking at what Gareth's done, trying to work out where the lines are going.
Let's click our bright yellow, bright blue.
Flee out this way.
Put it to 6.
So I double click to finish a line. I don't want that to be filled, but I do want it to have a stroke. I can use Command Shift F to bring up the fill and stroke options just to be able to go and set the width. You can see currently this is a jagged line. If I use F2 to get the point editor, Command A to select all points, and then go and say smooth points, then it will give me a wavy line instead. Then I can go and adjust the rotation, adjust the curve handles to get exactly the shape I want.
And then that's 6, so fine.
And so then I can follow roughly what Gareth's done up to that last station.
There we are, 'cause it doesn't have to be perfect.
Again, my northern geography isn't good enough to tell you on the fly which station that was.
Be perfect if you wish.
Oh yes, that was York, wasn't it? We said new line to York, and that's what we drawn, yeah.
Depends what you're
And similarly
sort
then,
of,
add
sort of
some
map,
smooth
of course. If I was
curve
clever, I'd
handles
have
to
brought
the rest of
just 2
them.
root in as well to allow me
Can
to.
go in and
But
tidy
I'm
up
not.
any of
So
the
what
curves
we'll
that
do
don't
is
quite look the way we
let's
want them
just
to.
draw in. It kind of comes in around here a bit like this, and then this. This doesn't have to
And
be
then
perfect.
let's hide the base.
This,
Let's
and then
hide
I
those
think
lines just to see how it looks compared to what Gareth's showing on his screen.
comes in along. Oh, yeah,
And
that
you
is
can
right. It does
see.
kind of do this, and then this, and then that.
Oh yeah, we need to connect up this one, which is what Gareth's also doing at the same time.
Again, let's do this. There we go.
So I have to wait for Gareth to
right,
actually show the
okay,
line
so
to be able to see it so that I can draw
there
it.
we go. Oh, what about this bit down here? It's a bit scrappy. What am I going to do about that?
Something to bear in mind when we compare timings later.
Well,
I'm
a couple
playing
of things.
catch up to
Firstly,
Gareth here.
let's edit our points and say, well, I don't want the map to go that far down. I want it to end there. So I'm just holding Control allows me to delete one of those spline points very nicely, which is very useful.
So exactly the same here.
I
I can
oh, you know what? I think that's too much.
draw one spline point too many and then go back and delete the extra one.
That spline point as well. So
Typically, I do frequently do that because I need to do the double click to finish, but that creates the extra point, which is not always what I want.
I want an arrow. I want a begin arrow type. I'm going to have this kind of arrow.
So,
and I want it
yeah,
to
let's
be
make those smooth points
size?
again. I can, similarly to PowerPoint, I can delete the spline point and
narrower.
Inkscape will fill in the gap.
To be
Try and match the curvature, unless it's ridiculously sharp, in which case newer versions of Inkscape now don't do that. They will turn it into a straight segment if it doesn't think it makes sense.
That's bad. This.
So yeah, we want to turn this into an arrowhead, and Inkscape can do this.
No, that looks
It's
bad.
similarly flexible to PowerPoint. There's some ways I don't like the arrowhead options in Inkscape. If you try and scale them, they don't always end up looking like lines. They look like wedges that have been squished too much. But if you want exactly the proportions of the default arrow, then it works nicely.
Northwards. That's nice and easy. In fact, it can be a straight line because the East Coast Main
Line. Yeah, what Gareth's done looks pretty similar to what we've achieved using the default option there, so it's not a problem for us.
Down here by
add another arrow up here to match what Gareth's doing at the moment.
We're going to go with that one, and it was the middle one, wasn't it? So that's nice.
And again, end arrowhead to the same kind of arrow option.
Going to hull. Hull is a bit trickier because we've got to stitch into.
So yeah, stitching into an existing curve is interesting. The way I'm going to do this is to try and match the curvature on as closely as possible. I will duplicate this line and then delete all the bits I don't want of it. There are probably other ways of doing this, but this is the way I've worked out that works for me.
This sort of fairly nice smooth connection. And then playing with the arrow key allows you to, so you can see there.
And now I can extend this
click up a couple of times, the end of the
by using B to get back the bezier tool and attach to the end of that line.
With the other lines. There we go. That looks alright.
And again, select all points to make them smooth, and you can see that's not worked. So undo that. Select only the new points, make those smooth.
Anyway,
so now that joins on there, and there. I can try making that as smooth. No, I use shift and drag out of that point to add a handle, and then that now flows nicely out of that existing line.
For example, the fact that this should be going into here.
So what's Gareth been doing while I've been doing that?
But also the fact that this should be going out of here, like.
More lines down here that are going to be arrows. So let's try and
just click that
again. Select duplicate the line, select all points, delete the ones I don't want. Delete all those as well, just so that I can match the curvature coming out on that nicely, so you don't get a conflict where you see the boundary between the two lines.
End arrow type to be this.
If I'd wanted to, if there wasn't a handy control point where I wanted to have my line exit, I could have double clicked with the points tool to add another point there before I deleted. But in this case, I just picked one that was already there.
Some text, I reckon.
Let's add an arrow there.
Let's grab our text from earlier.
So Gareth's copying in some text from earlier.
Same thing.
Can I do the same thing?
So line it up with this and line it up with.
This is where I get confused about what Gareth's doing. I copy in that text by accident, then I paste it and I can't find where it's gone. So let's panic for a bit. I'm using the various number keys to adjust the zoom level here. There is one that zooms to the currently selected object, but I couldn't remember what that was, and for whatever reason it wasn't getting me the right text. But now I spot that Gareth's actually copied that text in instead, so let's just use that.
slide.
For some reason that pastes a lot more nicely.
A bit. Let's
T to get the text to look. Change the alignment to left.
We're going to draw ourselves a box. There's a box.
Position that.
Size of the full slide.
You can see I'm positioning that relative to the view blocks rather than to the whole image.
We want the fill to be that dark colour.
That seems to be lined up quite nicely to the view box.
More fill colours, because down here, transparency. We want the transparency to be, let's say, 10% at this point. So now I'm going to just cut that, get rid of that, cut, and I'm going to paste it.
Now I'm going to reuse my view box to do what Gareth is doing with this rectangle here.
Think, oh, that's it's a bit dark. It's a bit too dark in the background. Oh, we can fix that, because if we then click on our picture in the background.
So this is something that Inkscape can't do, I have to confess. Inkscape is not designed for editing raster images, so it doesn't have any of these fancy adjustments to increase the brightness or contrast of the underlying image. It does have some filters that you can apply to raster images that are plugins, but nothing that seems to do quite what Gareth's done here, so I'm just forgetting about that. That's a point I'm willing to concede, is that if you want to do lots of raster image editing, then Inkscape isn't the software to do it in. You could do it in another piece of software, you could do it in GIMP and export it and bring it in, or your raster image editor of choice, but
if I go Shift F5 to see...
Yeah, trying to work out what Gareth is doing and work out if he can use those adjustments in another piece of software and then bring those in was something I was... Yeah, that would make this take longer, so... But yeah, let's try and match that colour and try and match the opacity so that we can see just enough of the base mapping through. That's probably a little bit too opaque. Just to try and dial more colour in.
That's looking quite nice, isn't it?
That's better. Let's bring the opacity down slightly.
Missing some text though, I believe, so let's do something about that. So bearing in mind that we want to oh god, where was the thing that I was playing with a minute ago? It's here. Good.
Let's bring that text in from over there. It pastes properly this time. Bring the size up.
The first is obviously let's bring
bring the rotation handle back to size. Well, back to 0 rotation rather.
Let's make this now. This colour. Ooh, look at that. Now what we're
going to bring in my rail symbol 2 again.
Use this for stations that connect.
At least that's what Gareth's just done, so I presume I'm going to do that next.
Is all of them. So you know what? That's fine.
There we go. My mouse has gone off screen. It's gone to fetch rail symbol 2. There we go.
This 20, so much smaller.
And we can match that colour.
We're going to say
there we go.
Street, and we can then go something like this. Just suddenly, so I'm going to increase the number of typefaces slightly, but just gives it, having a bit of bold and a bit of non-bold suddenly gives it a bit of a kind of quite a nice
control mouse wheel is zoom, by the way. I don't think I mentioned that earlier.
And quickly, I'm so sorry, Nick.
Just that is
lined up with the
it's aligned. That's what I want. Let's
so that it's just about doing the right thing.
Let's just get the bold font first, then.
So you know, take what clutter.
So switching to new alphabet, so I get the light variant.
But also, there's some little flourishes can help make it look nice.
This is something that Inkscape sometimes struggles with, is it tries to position the alignment menu off the top of the screen, and you've got to trace it down.
I'm going to do this by eye. I'm so sorry, Nick, but there we are. Now I don't want to repeat that process over again.
I'm going to fiddle trying to find the options for vertical alignment.
So I've just grouped
rather for paragraph spacing. I not see them because they are not in that drop down, they are further to the left on the toolbar. I just missed them. So
here we are. This is now going to be
yeah, if I'd spotted those I would have tightened up the vertical alignment there slightly, but I'm still searching in vain for a button that is staring me in the face just slightly over to the left. So again, wholly icon based stuff makes this a little harder. If there was some text and I could search for the text doing what I want, instead I've got to try and work out from the little icon what things mean. But yeah, given up vertical spacing and just tightening up slightly the position of rail symbol 2.
Let's go over here, and this is going to be.
Now, just like Gareth's done. Do I group this? I don't remember if I grouped this. Let's try and get the positioning right. Yes, that's grouped with Command G, duplicated with Command D. And even when it's grouped, I can still edit the text independently. So get out of the group so I can move the group as a single unit. There we go.
I put a station there. Let's just very roughly and loosely. I've already vaguely.
Command D, get that. Fix that. That was just. I'm going to forget how to spell Piccadilly now.
Here we are. Let's see.
No, it's 2 C's. It's 2 C's, and as soon as Gareth reopens his window, I can see that it should be 2 C's, and I can fix that again.
So.
Okay. fixed.
I'm going to go with North Manchester Parkway
So
as a
I
NAF.
get the copy of this
not
to
as a
become
station name, 'cause
Manchester
I don't put too
Parkway.
much thought into it and have all of you wondering exactly what my intentions are. There we go. Let's go. So then we're going to go here. We're going to go with.
So that collides, so we need to move that over, deselect the group, select the group, move it over.
Actually, it's James Square, isn't it? There we go. Fine.
So
Or do we
yeah,
call it
copy
new
that up.
interchange?
Become Bradford James Square.
Let's call it Bradford New Interchange because that's
No,
quite nice.
Bradford New Interchange instead. Okay,
obviously
I
you'd have
can
to
fix
move
that.
everything for it to make sense.
Position that so it won't collide with the next one.
Leeds. Actually, technically this is Leeds New Street, but no one really calls it that, so
Let's copy that over.
but
Oops,
we'll,
I've
for now, we'll
so
say
that's something
that.
you've got to be careful with is when you start a drag, sometimes Inkscape
let's
will
just go with
put the
this.
drag on the wrong
Let's
thing,
say
so you've got to
let's
hold the
go
mouse
with
stationary for a fraction of a second just to make sure you're selecting the right thing before you
It's
start
kind
the
of why
drag,
Sheffield
which is
Victoria isn't really Sheffield
a
Victoria.
bit frustrating,
This is,
but
this
in my
we're gonna
opinion it still
call
beats using PowerPoint for this kind of thing,
South.
so take that.
This is
Take from that what you will.
there we go. Meadowhall High Speed.
So, oh, we've got Meadowhall High Speed coming up down here now.
Lovely, and then obviously York up here. Lovely York.
Shuffle that over.
York.
There's the point.
Very exciting, very nice. Those are various bits of stuff. Now, I've just copied that text box on its own, and then that out, and then I've escaped it from the thing, from inside that group. The group means that we've got our nice double arrows everywhere, which is very nice. Bradford St James, St James. Well, we're going to be calling it
similarly, I need to escape the group and then paste so that text doesn't end up in the same group as Bradford.
Well, let's label these arrows. So let's do just that. So we're going to say to Newcastle. So that's going to go here. And we're going to go with down here. We're going to say to
yep,
East.
Go to Newcastle up there.
Because that's where that's going. Very nice.
Go down to
I'm going to say
East Midlands.
This is to West Midlands. Actually, this is to Crewe, technically.
Where's that
So
going?
let's go with to Crewe because that's
Try and position that nicely relative to that arrow.
This is going up to Scotland.
You can see somehow I've lost my arrow down here, so let's go and re-add that arrow now.
And
so that's going to be on the begin arrow now, it's going to match the end arrow.
Here, it's just to Hull. It's off to Hull, and I think
Yep, Hull is that way.
A reasonably tasty looking bit of map.
Oh, I've missed to Scotland over there, that's why.
The city name in bold. So the reason I'm not putting these in bold is because I think that would look cluttered. I think I want my stations to be in bold.
Yeah,
but I
agree. If you're having to somewhere, that never needs to be in bold.
To be,
I might have put them in italic myself,
kind of light,
but yeah, you do end up with more fonts that way. So
the text size of these bits, so you can reduce these down.
It's nice it's well, it's only one typeface if you ignore the fact I've had to use two typefaces to make up for the lack of bold in one.
I think that starts looking messy actually. And I think if we then go to Shift
So we
F5,
can select those. If I wanted, I could put those on a separate layer to the other text elements, and I could select these separately and adjust the sizes. Yeah, that looks kind of annoying if I make it slightly smaller, so let's undo that. There we go.
Better. That's my preference. But there we go. There's a style of map just like that. Sheffield Victoria was the old GCR Woodhead station. It was, yeah, but no. This is if HS2 came through, it would come through. It would come through Meadowhall in my idealised circumstance, wouldn't it? So there we go. There we go. There's our second map, and it's 2057.
Yeah, that's a little bit closer to dots. So I have done what Gareth did in PowerPoint, in Inkscape, and I'd say I've done it about as quickly. So let's recap the way I cheated to achieve this. Firstly, I did have two false starts. I have to disclose that. So the first time I tried this, I found, oh wow, turns out this is harder than I thought. I'm having trouble keeping up. I'm just about keeping up with Gareth, but it's really hard. Turns out I had VLC set to double speed, which, yeah, that wasn't going to work. So I couple of minutes I spent on that. The second time, in the first couple of minutes, I made a very silly mistake that resulted in hanging Inkscape for 5 minutes. That, yeah, that was my error, but that wasn't going to make a good video. So, yeah, it was the third attempt that made it, but neither of the first two attempts made it more than like 2-3 minutes in. So, compared to the length of time we did this, this is my first attempt at most of it. The second ways I cheated were 2 times I paused, once because Inkscape crashed, and that was mostly because I just wasn't able to keep track of what Gareth was doing whilst also trying to restart Inkscape and catch up to where I was. I think that was mostly covered by the time that I'd sat around waiting, because there were some things Inkscape did so much faster. And then the second pause was because I just don't understand the geography of the North very well, and aerial imagery without labels on it is quite hard to work with. So yeah, that was on me rather than on Inkscape. If I were as familiar with what I wanted to do, then that would be the same between PowerPoint and Inkscape. There's no difference there. And then the final cheat wasn't a timing one, it was actually a scope of what I did. I did not do any color adjustments on the mapping that we brought in because Inkscape just didn't offer that to me. So I could have changed the transparency of it, but brightness and contrast is something you'd want to do before you bring images in rather than in the software. That's, yeah, you can complain that that's a weakness of Inkscape for doing this kind of work. I think the benefits you get from Inkscape more than make up for that. So, speaking of the benefits of Inkscape, what are the relative benefits and drawbacks of Inkscape? Firstly, we already said Inkscape can't do those image adjustments, so take from that what you will. There's also a relatively steep learning curve. I mean, I've been using it for a long time now, so it doesn't feel like there is, but certainly it is less familiar if you've worked with PowerPoint in school or in work. Then it's going to be more familiar than a piece of software you've never used before. And some of the key bindings, especially on Mac, some of the key bindings aren't what you expect because Macs behave slightly differently and Inkscape is cross-platform software. But even then, some of the ways of interacting with it, you need to know they're there. You need to be aware of them so that you can use them and be more efficient with them. And I mentioned in passing, extending straight lines is kind of annoying. You have to drag maintaining the aspect ratio, but that changes the thickness, and then you got to change thickness back. So it would be nice having a way to extend a straight line as it is. Actually, that might already exist, I just don't know about it, because like I said, unless you know something's there, it's not necessarily that discoverable to find it out. But in exchange for those downsides, you get some really big upsides. Firstly, you get layers, you can lock layers, you can show and hide layers, you can adjust the transparency of entire layers, you can select entire layers at once. So yeah, layers, real killer feature if you're dealing with any kind of complex mapping, like the stuff that Gareth showed afterwards with, hundreds of stations. I really that would be utterly painful to me to edit in PowerPoint. Inkscape would make that at least bearable. As hopefully you've spotted, Inkscape's interface is really quick to use once you know it. There are a lot of key bindings that's very useful to know, but when you know those, then there's a lot less clicking around searching through menus than there is in PowerPoint, for example. The snapping is more flexible. You can turn it on and off. You can turn it off completely, or you can turn off individual kinds of snapping. You can decide, okay, I don't want to snap to the middle of the slide, but I do want to snap to guides or to the edges of objects, stuff like that. And speaking of guides, guides are a lot more flexible. You can put guidelines wherever you want. I didn't use them in this video, but I could have done, like I mentioned, for positioning some of the text, making it nicely aligned with the dots. But yeah, that's something I use a lot in other work. Is having very exactly positioned guides to know where I want things to go. In PowerPoint, you need to have dummy objects placed, which then you'd have to remember to delete afterwards, and you have to make sure you can actually select them to delete them and stuff. That would be annoying. So yeah, I think these upsides of Inkscape are really worth it compared to the few relatively small downsides. And yeah, I think you can produce output similar to what you produce in PowerPoint in the same time or quicker, depending what you're trying to do using Inkscape. So yeah, take from that what you will. Just a thing I thought was worth saying after Gareth's video. But no discredit to Gareth's video, it was a really good video, as Railnet always is. But yeah, just thought that was worth saying. But yeah, so don't subscribe. I'm not making a video like this again, but yeah, catch you later.